Okay, my apologies, we're coming in a little bit late tonight. We just had some technical difficulties. But I think everybody's here tonight and we are ready to get going. So the first item on the agenda is to reconvene the regular council meeting at, we are at 6:07. So the first item on the agenda, we have a delegation from BC Housing. I'm Nanette DeVoe and Tyler Baker on behalf of BC Housing to provide an update on operations at the Lenina shelter and to present BC Housing request to renew the shelter's temporary use permit. And we'll just let Tyler and Nanette take over.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for having us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. We're happy to be here.
I think some people probably can't hear you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for being here tonight. We're happy to be here. My name is Tyler Baker, and this is my colleague, Nanette Robot. We're both here from BC Housing. I'm responsible for the development of new housing projects in the interior region at BC Housing, and Nanette is responsible for operating those housing projects. So most of the questions that come up today, hopefully one of us will be able to answer. We have a very short presentation, but it really just talks about the temporary shelter and some of the successes that we've seen since that shelter's open. So you can go to the next slide. BC Housing, the City of Trail, and TACL, who's the operator of the shelter, have been working for several years to find a new home for the shelter from the previous location on Bay Street, or Bay Avenue, sorry. That location had some challenges. It was too small for the program that was being offered, and there was no outdoor space. So you saw a lot of impacts in the community because people didn't have anywhere to go during the day other than into the alley or onto a street. So one of the key things we were looking for when we were looking for alternate sites was somewhere that had outdoor space. And that's what we found on the Riverside site. In 2023, BC Housing leased that site from the City of Trail. And at the same time, the City of Trail approved a temporary use permit for that site, which is a permission for the land use to not comply with the zoning bylaw for a certain period of time. And the city approved that for 1 year from when the shelter opened. So the shelter opened in September of 2024. And so that means that the temporary use permit will expire in September 2025 unless it's renewed. So BC Housing has asked for a 3-year renewal, which would allow the shelter to operate for 3 more years while we continue to look for permanent shelter options. We'll go through today why we're proposing to extend it. We've seen a lot of positive impacts of having a permanent shelter and trail. And I think, anybody who's spent time downtown here, you will have seen the changes.
No, just let him finish his presentation, please, and then we'll do the question and answers. Thank you.
So some of the services that are offered on the site, people have meals, so they don't need to leave the site to have their daily basic needs met. They have somewhere to sleep, they have somewhere to do their laundry, they have somewhere to use the washroom and shower. There's storage for people's belongings, a small amount of belongings. And importantly, there's staff on site 24 hours a day to help people with planning for their next steps in their life. Shelter isn't permanent housing. It's a place for people to stabilize and start thinking about what comes next for them. It could be just affordable housing. It could be a recovery program. It could be returning to a family or friends that they have elsewhere or in Trail. And we've seen all of those outcomes already in the short amount of time that the shelter's been operating. Next slide.
And so I just wanted to apologize first. We looked at the agenda and we thought we were well down, so we were we were having dinner. So we got to trail at 5, and so we had an opportunity to go to Riverside and just to have a look on the outside, just to see what's happening in the neighborhood. So it was good to reacquaint us with what it looks like. Sometimes we think about shelter and we wonder about where are the impacts and how are people actually getting supported as they go from homelessness to other parts of the housing continuum and other health related supports that they can access, which sometimes when you're homeless, you don't have the ability to access those kinds of services, and having a place for providers to come to provide that care and support is how a shelter is really a benefit in community, and we've seen that in Trail. So this slide talks about all those positive outcomes for the guests accessing the shelter. And we just provided a lot of data, and this comes from the Trail Association for Community Living, who's operating the shelter. And this provides a lot of detail about the kinds of supports that are being provided to the folks coming through those front doors. So there's when we started thinking about shelter services and Trail before we opened Bay Avenue, it was like, well, what's the demand of Trail? And we see that since September 2024, so almost a full year, we've seen 91 unique guests since opening, which sort of indicates the significant demand in Trail for those who are unhoused. The occupancy is high. This is pretty consistent with the shelters across the region, across the province. There's an 88% average overnight stay, but sometimes that could just, mostly it's 100%. Sometimes there's a few changes, but it's quite full. So that talks about demand for those 25 beds. We also think about how to transition folks from shelter into housing options. We know shelters are an emergency. They aren't housing. They're not intended to be housing for folks. It's a place to go to stabilize and then to move on to housing. And so 13 guests actually secured permanent housing in the community, which is a big testament to some of the great outcomes and some of the great services that the provider is doing to get people to have secure housing. In terms of the health supports, people were always asking, what kinds of health supports can be provided? And Interior Health is no exception in terms of coming on site and providing supports to the guests that need them. So 5 guests accepted to substance use treatment facilities. There's referrals for another 3 guests. Part of the approach in shelter services is to develop care plans for folks that are individualized, because it's really about, we're all different and the people that come through those doors are all different. So 87 individualized care plans or goal plans for guests were developed in conjunction with the provider and the guests. 100% of guests were connected with Interior Health for various services, whether it's wound care, all the way through to mental health and substance use services. There were 6 guests who were supported to return to their home communities. So family reunification is a really important part of the work that shelter services do, and trying to develop, restabilize or reestablish some family relationships is another goal. In addition, 100% of guests were connected to the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. And that's important because then we know that people are accessing the financial supports that the government is able to provide to them. Next slide, please. So as part of our work at BC Housing with our providers across the interior region is to really make sure that we ensure that people are aware of our commitment to being a good neighbor, and that the shelter providers or supported housing providers, whoever is dealing in the homelessness services area of our services, are also committed to being a good neighbor. And an example or some evidence of that is around speaking to the community. So since opening in September of 2024, the provider went out three separate times, in the neighborhood, November 6th, March 1, and again, April 3rd. November 6th, there were 4 out of the 17 residents contacted. The feedback at that time was from those 4 that there were no questions or concerns. Everything was good. March 1, again, the residents, the provider went out, was able to connect with 3 out of the 17. The feedback was that one neighbor called 911 for a non-responsive person. And of course, they were given the feedback that that was the right thing to do. It's part of the who to call. Document as provided so that people know that when they see something or if they know who to call and they're given specific instructions, which all of you would have received. Another neighbor indicated that they were initially nervous, but now feel safer and has made amends with some of the shelter guests. And then the third neighbor had no questions or concerns. Again, April 3rd, a few months back, residents contacted 6 out of 17. Were able to be connected with. The feedback at that time was no questions or concerns. Residents already had contact information from the previous visits. So that included the who to call, when to call, which is the sheet that talks about the various things that gives the shelter team lead business card. It also gives the shelter's direct number. And that's the whole point, is to make sure that neighbors, businesses have an ability to connect with the shelter operator. If there's a problem, we expect the shelter operator to be responsive to the issue. And that's why we give the direct information. Next slide, please. This was just something that you often don't hear from people with lived or living experience about the impact that having a stable place to go, what it does to them. And so we just wanted to include a couple of these experiences just to show the impact when communities support shelter services and what it does. So just want to the La Nina staff, thank you for all your support and love. Some days are harder than others, but I must say that without all I can say, I wouldn't have made it through some of the darkest days. You were also genuine in every way. And the other one would like to thank you all for literally years of help, support, and many more wonderful things to our family. So to have an impact on people like that, there's a greater chance that they're going to be able to leave the shelter and access affordable housing in the community with the help of a shelter provider, with help of the other resources that BC has available, and then free up a space for someone else who gets shipped into homes. So that was our slideshow.
Let me skip your Taylor Baker.
Tyler, yeah.
Tyler. And so, if I'm hearing it correctly,
Sorry,
it's okay.
we still have more to present.
Oh, okay.
I think Councilor Martin has some numbers from the regional district to share. You wanted to know data, you wanted to know results of the shelter. So Councilor Martin has some of that information.
So you guys were all given a copy of the stats, right?
No.
Just Don was.
Okay. These are reported stats. Now, there's stuff that's there's gonna be information that, excuse me, that is not gonna be recorded. So again, these were provided by Sergeant Wysanowicz and Chief Derby. I'm just pulling them up here. There's a couple of different sheets. I apologize. Okay, we'll talk about, what do you guys want to talk about first? The fire department ones or the police? You just said, I'm picking the fire department because I know that better. So the stats have changed from 2020 to 2020. This sector, there we go. Now I got it spread out. There you go, to 2024. So, and remember from 2020 to 2023, actually till September of 2024, when the shelter in the alleyway closed. And I apologize for looking this way, but my computer's here. I could probably do this one. You can kind of see my face. So when we're looking at the types of calls from the fire department, they range from overdoses to first medical response when they wait for police. I could bore you with everything that goes through there. It goes through MVA, diabetic stroke, alarm, chest pain, convulsions, animal attacks. But from 2020, the stats to 1458 Bay Avenue, like 10 in 2020, 2021, there's 52. 2021, excuse me, 2022 was 65 total calls, 2023, 106. You can see there's a bit of an increase in the alley-ish area. January 1st to September the 7th, 2024, from the fire department, over 59 calls. Now from September the 8th, 2024 till July 10th, 2025, total of 57 calls. So it is comparative to a certain degree. It was a bit of a lawless alley to a certain, if you want to describe it that way. There's a bit more control at the shelter itself, but there's still calls. And you folks know, you see the emergency vehicles down there. From the RCMP perspective, just a second, I'm not computer savvy. There you go. So let's see, this is from Mike Dunaway, and it says 74 calls for service associated to the 2039 Riverside Avenue since September 2024 to today. And there's a list of them there too. So when the shelter was at 1458 Bay Avenue, and I'll just read the numbers. 2018, there's 60, and he doesn't break down the earlier calls. He just gives the numbers at this point. And if you have specific questions, you can get back to me and we can talk to Mike because he attends our community safety task force. So when the shelter at 1458 in 2018, 16 calls, 2019, 5 calls, 2020, here's where they changed, 26 calls, 2021, 99 calls, 2022, 93 calls, 2023, 67 calls. And from January 2024 to August, 37 calls for service. Now, the Riverside Ave, from 20, let me see. This is kind of confusing how he's got it here, but I'm trying my best, you guys. I didn't look at yours, sorry. It's just whispered in my ear. She did it in a nicer file, but I didn't look at it. The call's gone up, but there's a lot of calls that are happening. I'm just looking for the actual calls for Riverside Ave. Oh, 74 calls for service, sorry. So 74 calls for service associated at Riverside Avenue from September 24 to today. You see the difference from 26 to 99 to 93 to 67 in previous years. So the numbers are down, but there's still calls, right? And I'm sure everybody here has phoned.
Yeah.
And I hope that I'm going to encourage everybody to phone. I'm not trying to inundate 911 with anything, but if there's something serious happening, he's got assaults, breach of peace, disturbance, check well-being, missing persons, suspicious occurrences, theft under $5,000, uttering threats, information, assist other agency. That would be, for instance, like BC Ambulance or the fire service. You've got to, if there's an issue, like you can't stop. And I know I see a lady in there shaking her head, and I'm just giving you the numbers, man. That's all I'm doing. If you have specific questions.
They don't really care when they.
It's pointless, they can't do anything.
Yeah. Sorry.
So,
People give up.
I'm doing some work in the
Hold
community,
on a sec, please, hold on a sec.
so
I
based
just
on,
wanna see if Counselor Martin has finished his report.
Well, I think I've blabbed on enough about all the numbers and bored everybody with numbers. So if there's any questions, we can take the questions now.
there's a culture mindset with this shooter, and I've been
Sorry,
tracking.
hold on a sec, sorry, Doug. Counselor Martin is still speaking, I believe.
No, I was.
Oh, I just.
You gotta ask somebody to. Yeah.
Council
I'll
needs
continue if that's okay.
Okay, council, they want council to ask the questions first.
Thank you, I just wanna get a little bit of control here, please.
There is nothing under control.
Point of order.
Point of order,
Yeah, go
can
ahead.
we follow the agenda? Please, Mayor Jones,
I think we are.
finished, wouldn't we normally have questions of the delegation from us first before? we
That's
move
what I
to the
was
question?
directing,
Okay.
yes, thank you, Counselor Hanson.
Thank you.
So, Counselor Benson, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you for your presentation. At today's Community Safety Task Force meeting, it was raised that some shelter guests are using a 3-day stay as a form of reset before leaving the site and returning to different encampments around the city. This approach to me resembled a drop-in model, which I thought we were intentionally moving away from. As you said in your presentations, short stays can limit the effectiveness of the supports that we provide. Can you please clarify whether there's been a shift in policy or practice that supports this model? And if so, what was the rationale behind the change?
Yeah, so can you
So,
repeat the question?
Yeah, so visitors are going in as a 3-day reset, it was called, and then going back out into the different encampments around town. And to me, that seems a bit of a drop-in style model where if they're not there to get the supports, how can we help get further, which wasn't really the model that I thought that we were agreeing to.
I help with your question, please, through the chair, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead, Councilor.
So the way it was described to us today, that occasionally they have some empty beds, but they fill up every night. So people, occupants go in there or residents go in there, then they go in there for a reset, as Councillor Ben's saying. They have a meal, they have a good night's sleep or 2 nights sleep, they do their laundry and they're out again because they don't like the controlled atmosphere of being within an actual shelter or service area. But and my question to add to Councillor Benson's is this common practice in other shelters where if they do have the odd bed that they kind of rotate people through if they're willing to come in? Because the way we were led to believe it was going to be 25 people in there full time, all the time. And if there's an empty bed, somebody else from the street who unhoused, and I apologize for calling them that, but if they qualified, would be able to go into the shelter. Thank you.
Well, the purpose of having 25 beds is not for it to be like yes, the people will come and we hope that they get the stability, they get their care plans done, they've got their goals, and then they can actually action some longer term housing. And so, because there isn't much in the way of housing, that there would be predictability in terms of who's actually there, that there would be very similar people being there all the time. And there would be some people who would select to leave the shelter operations because they, as you say, some don't like rules and some prefer, in the summertime, it is a bit difficult. We see some people in the summertime who do sometimes choose not to be inside and will come inside at a later time when it gets colder. There is no 3-day reset or the 3-day policy. We don't have that. I think there's always a real desire to get people to engage with services to the greatest extent possible and build relationships with the providers, build relationships with folks coming from MSDPR, from health, so that they can start to, tackle the things that they need to tackle in order to improve their quality of life. People do have a choice though. And so you cannot keep people in a place like a shelter if they choose not to. And so some people may choose to leave. But practice is always to really focus in on those relationships, really focus in on understanding what their needs are and trying our level best to meet those needs.
Yeah, if I just.
Oh, sure, go ahead, Councilor.
And I get that totally. It just seems like this seems a bit like a routine thing, and to a point where it was like 50% of the beds are full time, and then the other 50% are people kind of on a rotating basis. So it just wasn't what I understood the shelter model to be.
Yeah, well, the shelter model, we definitely don't want a drop in so people can just access it, like they're not accessing a bed, but they're accessing sort of some of the drop-in services. That's not the intent of this. But if someone has a bed and then they choose to leave, they're allowed to come back. And if they have a pattern like that, and then there's an available bed, they're still allowed to come back. And we just hope that one of the times they do come back, they stay longer and they're able to continue to actively engage with shelter services. We know that people who are in shelter are going to be better supported than if they were outside. And sometimes they don't know that yet.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Councilor Johnson, did you have a question? I thought you had your hand up. No? Okay, is there, okay, Councillor Cashel?
Yeah, and just further to that, it's not my question, but I'll just, I think when cold weather gets here, that frequency of people coming and going will likely slow down considerably, I would imagine. My question, and I'll start with a bit of a preface. The September 12th Trail Times article reports that the new Riverside Shelter will have an annual operating budget of $1,400,000 per year. Which equals, an astute constituent brought this to my attention. I didn't even do the math on this, but it was quite profound. Anyway, so that equals to $4,600 a month per guest. If you were at 25 bed capacity, that's over $55,000 a year per person. So it's clearly not a sustainable model, which I think we can all agree to. So my question is, and you did allude to this, Mr. Baker, you said, in your narrative, you said, we will continue to look for other shelter options. But I want to kind of just bring that into this question is, what is BC Housing's plan to transition from a temporary shelter to permanent supportive housing in Trail? And what commitment can you make to ensure the Trail is not left with just a temporary response to homelessness?
Amen.
The first step in finding or in building a permanent shelter and trail is to find a site. So we need to agree on where in Trail a permanent shelter can go. And that's just like we agreed on the Riverside Drive jointly through discussion with BC Housing and the City of Trail. And then the City of Trail, it comes to council and they're responsible for land use decisions. And they approve or disapprove of that. Ultimately, City of Trail is responsible for land use decisions. So that's how we would come to a permanent option. Now, to the point about the operating costs, two things. One, we would compare that per person cost to what an unhoused person costs the taxpayers. And it's way more when you think about that person's accessing the emergency room and police and staying in a jail and accessing ambulance services much more frequently. That number is probably 10 times higher for an unhoused person. So that is why it is a sustainable model, and that operating cost would not be very different in a permanent shelter, because that operating cost is mostly for staffing. So it's paying people in Trail to work there. It's money that is going back into the community in that respect.
I need to be involved on that.
Yeah, for sure, the,
Sorry.
Just also to add to the point, Nanette mentioned the housing continuum. So shelter really is the first step into housing. BC Housing funds shelters. We also fund supportive housing. So supportive housing is just like the name implies, it's housing. Somebody has an apartment, they pay rent, but it comes with more supports. But it is somebody's permanent home that they can stay in. The supports are, some of the same things that are in a shelter, but people have their own room. They have a door that they can lock. They have their own washroom, whereas a shelter is a bed for the night. So it's quite a different model. But if there were supportive housing in Trail, we've had some people go from the shelter into just affordable rental housing or other types of housing. The path would often be from some amount of time in the shelter to stabilize and be ready to move on, and then into supportive housing. But a shelter and supportive housing is still part of the package of a complete housing continuum in any community, as well as more affordable rental options, subsidized rental, market rental, homes that people can afford to buy. All of that is part of a continuum of housing so that people can move along. If there's no rent, just, market rentals, people aren't moving from subsidized rental into the market rental. People aren't moving from the market rental into homes that they can buy if there's not enough supply. So all of that is important to have enough of whatever the community needs, and we see it in many communities, Trail included, that the complete picture isn't there. And that's what BC Housing is working on in Trail and elsewhere, especially.
Just a follow-up through the chair. You say working on, you said find a site, but is there a plan? Are you actively pursuing properties? And is this region given a priority? Are we given priority with BC Housing to find that site for supportive housing?
For sure, we have a number of people on both of our teams who are looking, evaluating options in Trail for a permanent supportive housing option. You know, we go out and buy property on the market like anybody else, so you know, we have to find that, negotiate, to enter into contracts to bring it to city council once we have a real option to talk about what the approval route would look like. And more broadly, we are doing that in Trail. In Nelson, we're completing 2 supportive housing projects. There's already shelter and Trail. In Castlegar, we have a larger shelter under construction that will open next year. In addition to the current shelter that already exists in Castlegar. And Castlegar, we're also looking for a permanent supportive housing project there as well. So similarly in Grand Forks, we are we have a shelter and we're looking for a larger shelter. So all of these communities work together. We know that people move around, but we're not putting everything in Trail. We're not putting everything in Nelson. We are looking at it as a complete region.
Okay, Councilor Benson?
I think the net has.
Sorry, I kind of jumped in.
I just want to comment on the operating budget. So whether it's a temporary winter shelter, temporary shelter or a permanent shelter, there's sort of a minimum staffing model that BC Housing supports. And so that's 2 24/7. Then in addition to those 2 24/7, which are the shelter frontline workers, then you have people that have to cook. And you have people that have to clean and maintain the property, and then you have shelter leads and the manager. So that's whether you have 25 beds like in Trail, or you have 40 beds in Kamloops.
Thank you. But we can all agree, though, that the model itself is not sustainable indefinitely, that kind of cost. And I think what it does, it just emphasizes the need for permanent housing. Can we agree on that?
I think that we can agree that you need all facets of the housing continuum to actually make a housing system work in a community. And if you only have bits of it, you are going to see these big gaps. So what we find is the most successful is places where you have your rent supplements so that you can lever the private market. Then you've got your shelter services. I think every community needs a shelter, given how homelessness is on the rise across the interior, across province, across the country. Then you need supportive housing that is supported in community. And then you have a range of affordable housing options. So you have rent geared to income, and then you have the low end of market housing. So when you've got that whole spectrum, you are a rich community with lots of access to services.
Thank you. And just on that, if I can just follow up question. So what I'm hearing is that even if we had a permanent supportive housing facility, you're still suggesting we're still going to need a homeless shelter. So now the question that we need to ask ourselves, and maybe I'm getting off subject here, is where is that shelter going to be located? Because we've got, yeah, okay. But I appreciate your candor on that, because I kind of, as much as I don't want to come out and make opinions, I can kind of see where that's going, is that even if we do have that supportive housing facility that may house 30 to 40 or who knows how many people, we're still probably, the way that the economy is going, the way the housing crisis is, we're probably still going to need temporary supportive housing or shelter housing.
And that's been our experience, is that
That's the reality that
that
we're
is the
dealing with.
reality.
And we heard it just today. I mean, some people don't want to come inside, or they only want to come, they're only willing to access something very low commit for a couple of days, right? That person, if you give them a studio apartment with their own bathroom and their own kitchen, is not going to be successful. They don't have the skills yet to maintain that housing, right? So if that's not a sustainable model to only have that piece, there needs to be that first step before people are ready to go into that kind of housing.
And just finally, I think there was a misconception, perhaps, maybe I'm the only one that had it, that if we get the permanent supportive housing, then the homeless shelter piece is gone now, but that's not going to likely ever happen.
See.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you,
You're,
Councillor Campbell.
Jones.
Councillor Benson, you had another question?
Yes, I do. So if the temporary use permit is extended for another 3 years, are there any commitments you can make in terms of improvements to the site? If it's there for a longer period, thinking specifically of the fencing around it, a bit more like privacy instead of the chain link. I know we talked about it at the neighborhood meeting.
We drove by it today and we feel the same, so it's
And-
something to look at.
Also, we just had what is that thing called on the street? The
Spirit.
speed reader, and it is, as I think we've talked about before, it's like a very narrow road, and is there any potential for some road improvements on there? If it stayed, I think like the highest speed was like 79 and a 30, so is there any commitment that PC Housing could give to the area
So
for improvements?
regarding the site and the capital improvements to the site, that's firmly within BC Housing's mandate
Yeah.
to make sure that that's functional, that people staying there have privacy. So dealing with the fence is, that's, we can definitely look at that. Improvements to public infrastructure like the road is outside of what
Okay.
BC Housing.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Martin.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Benson, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Councillor
Madam Chair.
Martin.
Just a quick question. I won't take too much more of your time. You're talking about 2 supportive housing sites in Nelson and you're actively looking for a site trail. How do you judge the size, like bed wise? How do you come up with that number for communities?
I mean,
That
so
might be a hard question.
it is a hard question. I mean, part of it, all communities do, so that's your own work of how many people are in need and what kind of housing you need in the community, so that is a reference point. Another reference point, in many communities is, point in time count, so once a year, the nonprofit sector goes out and counts how many people are unsheltered in the community, that's our reference point as well. But we also know that's always an undercount, because there's other people out there who are maybe sleeping on a friend's couch, or they're living in an RV, or they're in a car part-time, and maybe they stay in a motel every now and again. Those people are undercounted, and they often would benefit from supportive housing. So when we're making those decisions, we take kind of all of those factors into account. And think about also what's going to happen in the future. You know, we've seen today the numbers are increasing over time of people who are falling off of the housing ladder. So we also want to sort of future proof what we need, but we also don't want to build something that's too big for our community. So it's sort of a bit of a balance.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Hanson, did you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Jones. So I'm just, safety is a concern, right? I know that there is a pile of cameras on site of the shelter itself. How many of those cameras are directed towards the parking area as well as towards the Jubilee Park? As well as are the individuals that are working in there, Rotary Park, thank you. How many of the individuals that work at the shelter patrol the exterior of the shelter just to ask unwanted guests that are not staying within the shelter to leave? And what's your policy on that?
In terms of where, like the cameras are situated and how many, I'd have to get back to you. I don't know exactly how many,
There's 32.
but into those specific areas, but the camera placement is really part of that comprehensive plan to make sure that there's a line of sight, across and around the proximity of the shelter. In terms of the shelter provider, going to the park and back, they go throughout the course of the day. I think it's once per shift. And part of their approach really is around engagement with individuals, because they don't have any sort of enforcement capability or jurisdiction, and so we're really there to look and see who that person is and what it is that they're doing. And also just to try and remind people about the expectation about being a good neighbor and community and what that actually looks like. So that is part of their approach. I would have to say that this shelter operator, in terms of what they do in community, going to the park and back, is more than most. We don't require that in our agreements, but we've asked them to do that as part of our relationship and with the community, with the city, with yourselves. And in terms of wanting to be able to come here today to say we've done all we can in terms of how to be a good neighbor and being responsive when there's issues, so that you will consider a favorable result and extend the temporary use permit.
And fall through that.
Sure.
And so I know that when the shelter was first established there, one of the concerns that Sergeant Masenowicz had, as well as Chief Derby, was individuals surrounding the shelter outside the shelter fence and passing along food and whatnot. And I mean, the whole point is it is not a drop-in service. And so I just want to inquire what the policy is and is it being followed is the question, because I mean, I can see around there shopping carts. I mean, we know what we can do, what we can't do regarding Crown land. I mean, we have an amazing bylaw enforcement officer that is very good in a jurisdiction that technically isn't ours, to ask them to keep things clean and tidy and try to, but my concern is the congregation of people that are not allowed to be in the shelter because they can't follow the rules, causing disturbances for the neighbors. So how does that work?
Well, so the shelter operator doesn't, just like the bylaw officers, they won't go into encampments or anywhere outside of the shelter operations. And so that's why we need to have a good working relationship with the bylaw, with our CMP, with the shelter operator, to meet regularly and talk about some of the issues that come up, because it puts, like, you know, staff. If we leave the shelter to try and talk to people in an encampment where we don't have no enforcement ability, they won't. It's probably not safe for them either, and then they leave the shelter. And if we only have 24/7, that's one person at the shelter, so that's not a safe environment. So we need to make sure that all the staff are focused on the shelter operations. And if there's an issue, then we can talk about it as a community. We meet regularly to discuss these things.
Mayor Jones, may I please follow that question up with Community Safety Task Force? Have you had any feedback from Sergeant Masenowicz or Sergeant Derby in regards to specifically that around the exterior of it and calls that they've received to deal with anybody around the exterior of the shelter?
Nothing reported.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I just want to give everybody an idea where we're at right now. We have Counselor Wilson
Two
on
quick
the speaker
questions.
list. And then Counselor Benson again, okay? And I do have from the community, I've got John is number 1. Gord is number 2. Lindsay is number 3. Jill is number 4. Margaret is number 5. Audrey is number 6. Okay, so we'll finish with the council. And then we'll go on to go ahead.
Thank you. Just 2 quick questions. One is, well, first comment, I was shocked to hear that, you know, we were sold on the shelter not being a drop-in for a day or a drop-in for a night. We were not sold on that from you guys. It was supposed to be for people who want to be there and stay there. So that's a big shock for me, because I didn't even know that was going on. Is there a way to go back to what we were sold on?
But you can't keep somebody in there. So if somebody stays there for one night or a
Correct.
week.
But if they
want
keep
to-
coming back every 2 days, every 2 days, every 2 days, there's gotta be a pattern that you can follow to say, sorry, you know, either you're in or you're out. But that's what we were sold on. That was the initial.
So then you deny them the bed,
They can't come
then they're out in community? So is that?
That's their choice, though.
Right, but you'd rather have them able to come in and.
No, I would want people that wanna be there full time. Cause but look, the shelter that we had downtown, that was that model of come and go whenever you want, and it tripled our downtown. It created a hub in that alley, cause people could come and go and come and go. So I'd like to just know if we can get some assurances from you that that's more of a permanent shelter area for people who want to be there, not who just wanna go in for a day, do their laundry, whatever they do in there and then leave again, cause that's just not what we were sold on. And so I was disappointed to hear that. We didn't even know about it I didn't know about it till today.
So the point though of shelter services is so that when they come in, they create a care plan. And so that's the expectation, they create a care plan. But you can't force it on them. And so
For
if
sure, but you
people
can
choose,
deny it though. If
Well-
people don't wanna stay there.
but you can, but for BC housing, we won't deny service to someone
Yeah.
who is only willing to stay for a couple nights.
That's not weird.
That's not, emergency shelter is really about that. We want people to stay, and that's why we have really good service providers who, for the most part, people are accessing services and doing really well and staying there because they see the value it has in their lives and the improvements that they're making. And and they're better, they're feeling better. But you won't ever, it's not ever gonna be 100% shelter services. You look at the people that are coming to shelter services, many have had significant trauma, they have substance use, they have mental health issues. They've had things that happen in their lives that perhaps they can't through in a congregate setting, and we need to respect that as well. That's all be about.
I wouldn't-
comment.
Sorry, that's Captain.
Thank you.
Thank you. My other question is, are you guys open to anything less than 3 years on the permit? So my
No.
worry,
I don't know who that is. Oh, that's the third time.
is that your interface? My worry is that, as concerned for trail, that we would permit you guys for 2.5 years or something. That's just my concern. Is that if we give you 3 years, you get this buffer room of a year or 2 years, and then you start thinking about trail again.
So 3 years, if we had a site right now to build either supportive housing or permanent shelter, it would take 3 years to become operational. So we don't have a site right now, so I can very confidently say that in 3 years, we won't have an alternative. We won't have something ready to open the doors in 3 years. So 3 years is the most that can be approved today. And we will need to look at what happens after the 3 years, because this site will still be needed in 3 years.
So it's not going. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you. That's what I-
Councillor Benson.
Question actually, I think is for staff. So are we able to release the statistics data that we received from the RCMP and the fire? Hall, so that they can, citizens can see that and have a bit of understanding of our. Okay. And then two, could you maybe just give a refresher on the temporary use permit in terms of we can renew now for 3 years and what happens after that, just for.
Yeah.
Refresher for that.
Certainly, just, yeah, so when council approved it last year, it was for 1 year. It could have, at the first one, you can do 1 and 3.
Can't hear you. Can't hear. I'm for you.
Year ago, when this came forward, there was a request from BC Housing for the 3-year temporary use permit, which is the max for the first year. It can be renewed for 1 more, 3 up to 3 years, so that would have been a maximum of about 6 years total. Council decided on a 1-year temporary use permit to kind of, I think, show what happens when we get a proper shelter and benefits that it can cost. And now we're back here with the option for, again, 3 years. Council does not have to agree with 3 years, but you would definitely be putting yourself at risk not doing that, not having a shelter again. You're back to potentially the alley, but though we don't even have that alley space anymore, so not really sure what would come of that. At the end of that 3 years, there's a number of things that are going to be coming up or being part of the process for council, and that will be, and this is one of the challenges that BC Housing has faced here in Trail, is that there is no zoning for supportive housing and or a emergency shelter. Makes it very difficult for BC Housing to buy a piece of land without council kind of approving a zoning or having a zoning. So as we're working through the OCP right now, we would hope that, well, the plan would be at the end of that, that there are zones that allow for supportive housing and for shelters. And then that would probably assist, that would assist BC Housing on making a selection of piece of property they could go with. Hypothetically, if you got to the end of 3 years, much like we had with the previous downtown shelter, and say they were in the process of building, maybe they were a year or a year, 18 months or 2 years into building, and they're still leaving some time, then you could definitely see council saying, okay, province, please use the powers that you have to overrule municipal zoning and allow the shelter to stay there, even though the temporary use permit has been completed. While they wait on the construction to be finished on a new site. So those are kind of the steps that we have.
Thank you. Okay, so if council has no further questions, we're going to move on to punishment period. And I read out the list before, so is council okay if we move forward to the, okay. No questions? Okay, like I said before, we've got Dawn, Gord, and then Lindsay.
Hi, how are you doing? So you guys have come here with a presentation today. How much time have you spent in the community here and at this shelter? How many hours have you spent in this community?
No, but-
Sorry. How many hours have you spent last year and this year in the community at the shelter to bring this presentation here
So I can tell you, that
personally?
part of my team, so we have a huge
I'm
area,
asking how much-
and I'm trying to add students, okay?
Just, you know what, Dawn, we're supposed to be talking about the shelter.
We are, this is what it's about.
Okay,
I'm talking
and let's
about
focus on the
presentation,
shelter.
How this information
Thank
ended
you.
up here being presented. I will tell you, we do have undercover people in the community and hiding their resources around, so I'm asking you. How much time you spend here in the community?
So we're both directors,
Mhm.
and so we have teams of people who support the operations. And so Trail, I have a designated supportive housing advisor who is responsible for working with Trail Association for Community Living to support the shelter operations. So he's in the community, he's meeting with them, he does Teams calls, all of that sort of thing, which culminates into, and he also shows up at different community meetings to support the shelter operations and making sure that if there are issues that we're able to address them right away. Also works with, we meet very regularly, city staff in terms of figuring out other options in community from that real estate point of view. So we are both actively doing that. So I can't quantify the hours, but I can tell you that Trail is a community, much like our other communities across the interior region. We have many of them, because we have a very vast region. And we prioritize this community just like all the others. And so that's why we have an active shelter. We are actively looking at supportive housing as well as the other funded programs that are available.
Several of your sites in the Okanagan area, this area, and I've heard a lot of conversation about this shelter and other shelters. I've not heard anything about curbing the drug problem with people that are using the shelter, the fentanyl crisis. So what is BC Housing doing? What is your stance on the fentanyl pandemic and how are you dealing with it?
So, Dawn, you know what, we're here to talk about the shelter.
That's what I'm talking.
We're talking about housing,
We're
we're
looking
not
at
talking
shelter.
about how they can get people not addicted to drugs.
That's what
There,
I'm
the
asking.
shelter is a way of harm reduction.
But it's not prevention, and you know as well as I do, there's a difference between harm reduction and rehabilitation. Problem with it all is, we need a stronger RCMP presence out there, aggressively dealing with the drug problem. It's attracting dealers. We have 4 known criminal organizations operating in this area right now. They're being attracted to the users at that shelter, and the houses are being accommodated into in this community. So how are we gonna deal with this?
So can we focus tonight on the shelter
We are.
and the work
This is
that
what-
shelter is doing to help support the homeless population? Please, can we focus on that? Okay,
So how
So-
many overdoses have been prevented to people?
This is a
Staying at
BC
the
housing presentation. I'd like to talk about the shelter. I really want to have a conversation about the fentanyl crisis.
My question is, how is the shelter helping any of the people that are staying? How is it helping them? Was it prevented,
What's stats on that?
with overdoses? How many overdoses? Was it?
Tell them what the stats are on that.
Even if those stats are accurate or not. Just another.
well, if they're from the police, they're
That
from the
doesn't make
fire
it accurate.
department. Well, those are the only ones we have to go by, so
I
if we're
understand.
not gonna focus
trying to
on
be-
the work that the shelter's doing. I'm gonna have to move on to the next person in
That's
line
fine.
for questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Yes.
Nanette, did you wanna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, part of the presentation just included the connection to services, and that is connection to interior health services, from wound care to mental health, to substance use during this. So, 100% of the people connected to shelter were connected to interior health for some form of treatment. So that is a really important statistic. Because if they weren't at the shelter, they may not have received that treatment. And so that's a really have a place for health to come in, and that's exactly what the shelter is providing.
Prevention.
Okay, so we're going to move on to Gord. Mr. Fisher?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I'm here to advocate for council to turn this request down. Your model's been a complete failure. Now, I'm not against the shelter, and all the things you said are helping. It's the wrong location, and it's the wrong structure for a facility. They need way more resources to operate a shelter, as you basically acknowledged. That is wrong. The first one destroyed our downtown. You don't talk about that. You're on the shelter, fair enough. In the meantime, collateral damage. Our town's been wiped out. Just go down and see the empty parking spots in the middle of the day. And I'll show you a video from 1974 where there's not a parking spot available. That long ago, we had a vibrant community. So then we go down there. And that disaster you had in Bay Avenue,
Gord, were you gonna get back to the shelter?
right now,
Okay, good, thank you.
the disaster you had downtown has now moved to Groudage Avenue, where I have property. So I'm a neighbor. I wasn't invited to any of those 3 meetings that you had. And the last meeting in the end of April, I wasn't invited to that. Thank you for the invitation for today. But I'm just here to tell you, it's an unmitigated disaster down there. It's the drug use is over the top. In my front yard, they've thieved all the garden tools tenants had down there. They congregate, pass out, dope out, right at the end of the $15 million walking bridge where people are coming from all over the world to go. And this is our presentation to them. And
So Gord, do you have a question or a comment?
I'm just laying it out. I mean, I listen to their propaganda on what a good thing this is, and I'm here to advocate to the council. This is wrong. And this isn't I just want to say this isn't an application for an extension. This is an application for year 7, 8, 9. It's already failed for 6 years, and now you want us to concur to an extension for 3 more years. And I'm just here to tell you, it's wrong, and we need stronger legislation. And I think you're talking to the wrong people. You're trying to unroll your problem to this council, and you need to get back to your legislators, and we need stronger legislation. So that, yeah, I mean, Madam Mayor, if I
I
may.
just want to make sure that you're respectful here, okay?
Yes, absolutely.
you.
No, and have I been disrespectful? I'm sorry.
Gord?
I am?
No,
No, I'm asking if I'm disrespectful.
No.
No, I did.
Okay, thank you.
Frustrating.
So thank you for that.
Conversation, please. Go ahead, Gord.
So I just want to, back to the setup of the shelter. And as the Bay Avenue demise, we had a meeting. And so great, because they had a meeting here and then 200 people showed up from the Colombo Lodge to quell the application on Roslyn Avenue, and council heard it. So then we had another meeting and somebody had an idea. Well, first of all, let's bring in a professional facilitator to operate the meeting, and let's restrict the attendance to 15 people for feedback for this shelter. So
Gord, can you?
so I'm talking about the shelter and how it got set up
Yeah.
and the folly of it, Madam Mayor.
Because we're at question period.
Okay, so do I have a question? I mean, no, it's futile. You get this feeling of futility, Madam Mayor. The property values are going down, and that's what I saw in the invite. People with properties affected. I had 5 properties down there. I had a 30-year dream of doing something with the best property on trail, and it's impossible to proceed. The council has worked with me, and I appreciate it. And now I'm in a stymied situation where the needs of the tail are greater than the needs of the dog. And I said 5 years ago, the tail's wagging the dog, and nobody hears it. And I hear about the needs of these people. I see the needs. This guy asked how many. I'm down there every day. Every day. I talk to the people. I know what they're getting is not adequate. I'm there on June 30th, and there they are, strung out, and the help comes along with the food, and which is more enablement. But I overhear. Oh, by the way, remember, I'm not here tomorrow. So tomorrow's July 1st, and everybody's got a job. You've got a job. Who's ever doing that, it's all about the job. It's not about helping the people. These people need 24/7 care. And the stat comes along, doesn't work. I'm finished, Madam Mayor.
I know.
I'm finished. It's futile.
So I'm supposed to limit everybody to 2 minutes, and I give you a little bit more time than
Thank you.
usual.
Well, you know,
So if you have a question, this is your last opportunity.
but just a point of order on that, Your Honor, because my understanding is everybody that addresses council's got 10 minutes.
No,
This 2-minute rule, I don't know where that came from.
it's actually right here. Under question period, you have 2 minutes,
I'm going by Robert's Rules of Orders. I don't know about,
2 minutes with a total of 15 minutes per question period.
is that a bylaw? Like, how did I miss that?
Minutes
The
here.
procedural bylaw.
Procedural bylaw for the city? Okay, so now I clarify that.
Hear what he has to say?
Uh,
You want.
Sorry,
Yeah.
wait,
Why?
I have another speaker here. I'm moving on to,
May I-
Lindsay.
Mayor Jones, if there's time, can I be added to the end of the list?
Sure.
Please, thank you.
So I'm moving on to Lindsay, your turn.
I'd just like to say where you guys, okay, to start with, I'd like to see no 3 years. There's there, I'd like to see it on a 1-year renewal to keep accountability to the people who are running it.
Yeah.
And I would also like to say, when you guys went down to that shelter today, when you were here, but whatever time you went down there after 5 o'clock, did you see the guy by the gazebo passed out like this? That's what we see every day. Last weekend, I went through there with my dog. Needles, crack pipes, a shopping bag full of blister pack full of drugs. That's what we see every day. Cause you guys put in a shelter into our area that we pay taxes on. I don't know where you guys figure BC Housing's got the frickin' golden pot where you can just keep spending money and throwing it at these people. And say, oh, well, they can come when they want, or they can leave. You gotta mandate, tell these people either you stay or you're gone.
Lindsay.
Where did they go?
You have a question for these?
Yeah, I want these people, I want to be a 1-year lease.
Okay. Thank you.
I want
need to know that.
accountability to Sheila Hackpot. That's what I want.
Okay, thank you. So,
And we're
well,
tired of seeing drug users passed out in Rotary Park. Sick and tired of it, sick and tired to see people living on the frickin' beach all summer. I like to camp on the beach all summer, but I gotta go to work and pay my taxes.
Okay, for them to clean them.
thank you, Lindsay, Jill.
I got a couple here. You, Brett, who was asked about if the road was gonna be fixed, if there was a possibility of BC Housing. And you said that's not in your jurisdiction or whatever, just the shelter. Well, the thing was, is the first meeting we had with you and the city, whatever, city promised that that road would be fixed.
We talked about it, yes, we talked about the
You
sidewalk.
talked about not just the sidewalk.
Yeah, and we
We
mentioned
asked
that
that
the road was
over
narrow.
because we told forever
Yeah.
how dangerous that road was, that you mentioned the speed going along there and how dangerous it is. So I wanted to put that out there. And I'm not surprised that you guys aren't gonna put money towards it.
That was occurring before the shelter was there.
Yeah, exactly. We went on about that road way before and then we told all about it before the shelter done it. Question, why isn't anybody from the shelter here tonight?
I think they're online, actually.
So they can hear what's going on,
They're online, yep.
but why aren't they here?
I don't know, because they can attend
You
by
guys
Zoom.
are representing the shelter, I assumed. But you're not there every day. So why isn't some of the workers here representing? Are you
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
The shelter, but I work for Child Community Action Team.
Oh,
I'm asking the shelter.
They're
online. But I want them here to answer some of the questions.
Okay,
They're not here.
so,
Move on.
are you finished, Jill?
Don't tell me to move on.
No, it's up to me to, make sure that this is
Well,
going
so-
okay. So Jill, if you're finished, I am actually gonna move on to
I
Margaret.
have more questions.
Okay, I'm asking you if you're finished. If you're
No, I
not,
didn't
ask your
hear you,
question.
sorry.
Hey,
Because
go
I'm
ahead.
interrupted. How many ambulance calls to that shelter? Was that numbers in there anywhere? If I missed that part. I didn't get stats.
No police and fire
We
trucks.
just did police, we just had police and fire.
Just
Yeah,
police and fire. Okay, I wasn't sure.
If the fire department's Sorry, through the chair.
Yes, thank you.
If the fire department's going down there, the ambulance is obviously called. The fire department
Okay,
just
so is
isn't
it all
down
part of
there.
it, I
Yeah.
would assume, then?
So
Or is that
you're talking
separate?
about the Riverside shelter from
Yeah.
September 8th to current 18 calls
There's more here.
for overdose.
Is that just for overdoses?
Yeah.
Or is that not like other stuff?
First medical response 15, which is up from the, oh, sorry, through the chair, which is up from Bay Avenue, because they're reporting to what Chief Derby said was to more like medical issues. But yeah, if we can make this public, you can see the data from them, but
Okay, I
18
wasn't sure if I missed it.
18 overdose, 15 first medical response. 6 diabetic, 13 alarms, 2 chest pain, 1 allergic reaction, 2 burn complaints.
Burn complaint is somebody lighting fire.
Like they did the Ezekiel. Okay. Oh, what was it? I missed it.
So,
I got one more question.
okay.
Security, there's security in there, right? In the shelter? Is there security in there?
No.
So what's the cameras for?
It's just so that people can see what's happening inside and outside and make sure
So
that
that would
our
be-
standard. How we build shelters, is we have security cameras.
It's like there's 2 shelter workers there 24/7, and they're responsible for all aspects of operations, including security, like I said.
You're just like for Kootenai area, your group? Is that what you do it? Like, say Vancouver Island, would that be a different group?
Yes,
That's
but
what
we
I do.
cover the same areas interior health, so we go up to Williams Lake all the way to the Alberta border and down just.
So Vancouver Island would be something different?
Yes, it's a different region.
Okay, because our daughter worked for BC Housing at the shelter there. And BC Housing pulled out because it didn't work.
Okay. So I
I
have
have more questions, but I think
people that want to speak.
so.
Margaret, do you have any new information to bring to the table right now? Because
Yes.
we're actually over our 20 minutes for question period.
Yeah, the work.
Yes, first I'd like to say that since there's no options right now for a new shelter area, you're really asking us for 6 years, not 3 years.
Okay, we've heard that before.
Okay.
Actually, Mr. Fisher spoke about that.
Okay. And I want to know why nothing has been done. So when they're smoking their drugs, they go into a shipping container that's wide open to the outside. So all of those drug fumes and everything are coming into our neighborhood area. Nothing is ever done about that. It's not vented and filtered or anything. It's just a wide open shipping container. But they sit there and they smoke their drugs and it comes out into the area. And you talk about the impact of the shelter on the people there. You have no concern for the impact of the people that live in the area. I've had people that sold their home when the shelter was going in. That's why she's my neighbor now. I know people that don't come around the area, they don't walk the walking bridge. No one hangs out in Roadway Park because it's taken over.
Our neighbors are actually moving.
Yeah.
So, Margaret, you know what, when we had that housing meeting, that meeting with BC Housing, all of this was brought up. And
And
nothing's
nothing's being
changed.
done, that's the problem. You keep saying you hear us and nothing changes.
Okay,
I did some stats just on the information that we were given. Your success rate is 14%. Which equates to $105,769.23 per person that has gotten shelter. Yes, that's, if there's 13 guests have found permanent housing and there's been 91 people there, that's 14%.
okay, thank you.
He's stated that that it costs way more for people to be out on the street than to run the shelter. Do you have any stats for that? Is it just something that you say because?
Okay, so,
Do we have stats for that? We don't, right? There's no stats here for that.
but we can report back on.
And also, the shelter is being used as a drop-in center. I live across the street. I see people come, push the button, go back to their car, take their bags of stuff, go to the gazebo and set up shop.
Yeah.
Sitting there selling their drugs.
It's a fact.
Yeah.
My daughter's been accosted, hey, you wanna buy some?
Okay,
drugs?"
Margaret, I'm sorry, we've heard this. I know it's important. We know we've heard
No,
this.
you've listened, but you haven't heard, because the
Okay,
same thing
thank
is
you.
happening over and over and over again.
So we have one more speaker. We have Audrey that's up next. Audrey, I'm gonna limit you to 2 minutes because we are running really behind on this.
Okay, I'm here to ask you not to renew
Mhm.
the 3-year contract and to tell the partners at BC Housing that Trail will not accept this model. And I have 2 questions, 2 reasons. One is, what it costs the residents of Trail to have the shelter. Let's say 20 of the people are using drugs. Sergeant Mike told me that it costs between $200 and $300 a day to keep a drug habit. That's tens of thousands of dollars. Everyone at the shelter is on disability, right? 14 to 1,600 a month.
Yeah.
So that is not enough money to keep their habit at all. So the rest of the habit is, that's what's costing the residents money. They're stealing everything. And it's not like they stole my smoker. My smoker cost $500. Well, they can't get $500 from it. So I do not want this model. This model is broken. You're warehousing sick people and we're watching them die in public. And you're normalizing it, normalizing drug use in the shelter and just enabling this cycle. And then to make it worse, you're accepting seniors because BC Housing does not have a policy that keeps seniors that are not hard to house out. For your supportive housing and for your shelters. All the shelters and supportive housings in British Columbia do not have any safeguards or any policies for seniors, for elders. So you're talking about putting new supportive housing here. So you're gonna take the people in the shelter on disability and put them with seniors that are frail. I had a senior come to me that was at that shelter for 6 weeks. She had everything stolen 3 times, like every single thing, including toothbrush. Every single thing. She got scammed. She was
Okay, thank
terrified.
Your time's up. Sorry, Audrey.
So I
I need
want
some new
policy,
information.
I want council to insist that please, that policies are put in place to keep the safeguards of seniors and to keep the safety of residents for the cost that it costs people in that shelter, and they're all using drugs. Your stats show how successful you are to keep them off of drugs. Well, you're not. No one's, the
Okay, thank
business
you,
model
Audrey.
doesn't
Thank you
work.
very much. Thank you.
Not to mention the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from the food bank that are delivered in some big white electric car as an
Okay,
upgrade.
thank you, Audrey.
Good business model.
I am actually going to move on to Mary. I think you were next on the list. Yeah.
I apologize for yelling. But geez, Louise.
Hey guys, I am wondering if just listening to the cost that
We can't hear you.
the cost that, thank you, that Councilman Cashel put forth about what it costs to house and feed someone in the shelter. I'm wondering if you guys could provide some data to the council, just for future review, for what the difference would be for supportive housing. They would assume there'd be a difference, maybe providing some of their own food, things like that. So I wonder, cost wise, which one is actually a more effective model?
Well, I don't think it's just different. I think with supportive housing, of course, there's a revenue component.
Yeah.
People pay $500 a month.
Exactly.
That offsets the staffing model. So that's why it's a bit cheaper in supportive housing, because you've got people paying rent. In shelters, you don't.
Exactly.
But it's a similar staffing model though. It's the 24/7, it's person cooking, it's the person cleaning, it's the person looking after maintenance. So it is a similar in terms of how much it costs operationally, and then again, it's that revenue.
Yeah, so there's a bit of revenue coming in, so overall, cheaper, I guess. And then, just looks like we're still working on zoning, being changed in order to be able to do something more permanent. So how does changing zoning work? Like, is that something that's done at this level through the council, or is that a higher up thing? You guys have to jump the chain and?
No, it would come here if they found something that we needed to change the zoning on. It would come here and go through council before it happens.
So, yeah, so is there anywhere that you guys have found, like, there's lots of empty buildings and things and space, like, is there anywhere that's been a?
I mean, there have been places that we've looked at that haven't worked for a number of reasons.
Okay.
The location's not appropriate, or, the person who's selling it, their price doesn't match what we're able to pay, because we're a public entity. We can only pay what, an independent appraiser values the property at, so often things break down at that point. So there's a number of reasons why it wouldn't work. Another could be that council may not be supportive of it. And so we're still in the process of looking, so we don't have anything like under contract right now, for example.
Okay, and you, mentioned at some point, Tyler, that you're thinking it's going to be 3 years plus. Because of the type of process you have to go through, you still have to find somewhere, you have to figure out zoning.
Yeah.
Negotiated costs, like,
if we
and then
had-
rental it,
if
so
we
that's
already-
why we're at.
If
such
we
a-
already have a site right now, the design and approvals process, we have to retain an architect, an engineer, all of that to design a building.
Mhm.
That takes about a year, and then we start construction, and construction of a brand new purpose-built building is about 2 years. So that is
Mhm.
fully 3 years. And that's assuming we've already bought a site and it's ready to go. That process, we've been at it for a number of years in Trail. So
Mhm.
the process of getting to the point of having a site that's ready to go could take years, could take 3 more years by itself. If everybody's pulling in the same direction and we find something, it can happen quickly. It has happened in many other communities. So, it could happen here quickly as well.
That was all my questions, but thank you for presenting to that. Yeah. Thank you.
So one more question. Go ahead, Mary.
I would just like to say the original concept of the shelter. I'm for a shelter. I'm not for a shelter in a neighborhood. And the original concept of this shelter had a lot of outside area within the complex. What I see there is a lot of asphalt and a lot of staff parking. So consequently, people spill over into Rotary Park and to the walking bridge. And it's not acceptable. That part, it's not acceptable at all for the people that live there to feel they have to get out of that compound. So I really believe that we were sold on a totally different model.
Exactly.
Not a drop-in and not that visible model. That for $2.1 million, I'm sorry. It doesn't work in a neighborhood. Maybe an industrial park is maybe where it should be. And maybe it could be relocated to that. Because now we have a big van that can bring people their medications or bring people to their appointments that they need to go to. But that shelter in your neighborhood, Tyler, or Nanette, in your neighborhood, would not be welcome. And it's not welcome in these people's neighborhood. It's not appropriate, and you know it. And the council knows it, and they wouldn't want to have that shelter in their neighborhood. So I encourage you to vote no for this shelter and give the onus back to the provincial government and the federal government to do better for those shelter people, for you guys, and for everybody in our community and in this room. It's not working. And especially, about the fentanyl and the drugs. It's a continual hamster run. These people are on the way it is.
Okay, thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Good job.
Sure, did you want to say something, Claire?
I just have a question. Yeah, I live in the neighborhood and I'm kind of sad about some of the harsh words. This neighborhood has long faced challenges. I remember incidents over 15 years ago involving very serious crime in this neighborhood. These aren't new issues and they're not caused by the shelter. You've read my thoughts on this all, but my question for BC Housing is, do you have a plan to make the shelter wheelchair accessible?
So wheelchair accessibility is a challenge in this type of building format, which is temporary, because we only have a few years there. We did not build a purpose-built building. And if we do build a purpose-built building, it will be more accessible. Now, that being said, the shelter operations do everything they can to accommodate anybody who comes in, including people who come with different mobility devices. They might have a cane, they might have a walker, they might have a wheelchair sometimes, but they can get around with the cane for short distances. So they're capable of working with people who show up with all sorts of challenges.
Okay. So, just before, I'm going to let BC Housing have the last words here, but I would like to say something if possible. Well, I will say something. So a year ago, when we were looking at this temporary shelter, we went through the same thing here. I'm gonna go back to when I was on council, and I don't know where there's Councillor Butler. And we talked about this temporary shelter, and so that was, what, 4 years ago? And you know what, back then, we were promised that trail was going to be a priority for not only the shelter, but moving forward on supportive housing. Last year, when we renewed this temporary shelter, we were told back then trail was a priority for supportive housing. And here we are a year later, going through the same thing. Now, I just want you guys to know that I have made notes here. And it sounds like if this does move forward, that you want a 1-year renewal. Also, the smoking of drugs in the neighborhood is a real concern to neighbors across the street and around the shelter. We need policies in place for seniors. And it sounds like wheelchair accessibility is really important too. We've heard you guys. We are listening, just like we said with the BC Housing. We would continue to have meetings with them. BC Housing, the City of Trail, we've all tried to be good neighbors and support each other through this temporary process. And I actually think that we've done a very good job of listening to your issues and trying to resolve them, and especially within the shelter, which is what we mostly have control of. So I just wanted to say that if this goes forward, we will continue to be good neighbors. And we'll continue to meet on a regular basis like we have been. And we'll listen to the issues that come forward. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys know that we hear you. Because every time you have an opportunity to let us know what's going on in your neighborhood, you guys do come to us and you stand up for your neighborhoods. And to me, that's what a community and a neighborhood does. They stand up for each other. So I just want to make sure that I wanted to let you know that I've made notes of everything that you guys have said. And with that, I will give BC Housing the final word here.
All right, thank you very much. We are asking for the 3 years, like I said, because there's no alternative. If the temporary use permit were renewed for less than 3 years, the shelter would close. And the alternative is having how many people were in I think the staff was 98 people, individual people were served at that shelter since it's been opened. That's 98 people who would 95, 91 people, 90 something people who would be unhoused in your community. And I do not think that is an outcome that anybody in this room wants. It's not the outcome that BC Housing wants. It's not the outcome that
Say
the city
that,
of.
there's 25.
It's your personal
There's only
opinion,
25.
and I'll speak for.
Okay,
Speak for yourself.
it's not an outcome that BC
It's their
Housing would want.
Thank you.
We think that that would have greater community impacts and greater costs to the community. BC Housing is here as a part of the province of BC with upfront capital investment on that property and ongoing operational we funding the operations.
No, we
That
have it.
that is the province of BC not downloading to the city. That's the province doing something
As
here.
a taxpayer. That's all.
Yes, but you asked,
Taxpayer, something not you, government, that's taxpayer.
Fishery taxpayers dollars. We own our tax dollars, government.
Please, can we just let Busy Housing finish? I think I gave you guys time. Like, we're way over the time limit that we have legislated, so go ahead.
So
Started late.
we're that's where we'll end. We think the shelters had positive impacts. People are being housed. And that's the point of the shelter operations, to have people housed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to, thank you both for being here tonight. And thank you all for being here tonight as well.
When will you make the decision?
Well, if you give us a couple of minutes to get to that part of the agenda, we'll be making the decision tonight.
Oh, apologies, I was just wondering, yes, if we should go now or.
Yeah. Okay, so, other reports, is there any other reports to bring to the table right now? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the temporary use permit renewal for 2039 Riverside Avenue. I can wait, if you wanna go outside into the conversation, I can wait till you go outside.
Don't be silly. No, we're fine.
Okay, so we have a report from the General Manager of Corporate Services advancing a request from BC Housing to renew the temporary use permit to allow the operations of a modular emergency homeless shelter on the city and Crown land owned properties at 2039 Riverside Avenue. And the step report is, go ahead.
Thank you, your worship, through to council. So this report is basically written, as a legislative requirement, so. You'll see that because the, temporary shelter permit was issued for 1 year, the maximum that it can actually be renewed for again is a 3-year term, giving the shelter life 4 years. So past that, as Colin mentioned earlier, we would have to go to the province and ask for basically special consideration. But as far as council is concerned, they have one kick of the can to renew a temporary use permit and it's 3 years. And then after that, the only other powers that council have is to permanently rezone the property or relocation of the temporary shelter.
Okay. So is council ready for the recommendation? Can we?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Jones.
Oh, yes, sorry. Councilor.
Yeah, just on that one, Tracy. Because part of that property had to be taken out of federal lands there because of the floodplain. Could it or could it not be continuously rezoned permanently?
Again, it would have to be a partnership between the
Us and
province
federal
and
government?
Crown land.
Okay, so recommendation is that council consider and resolve, whereas BC Housing has been operating an emergency shelter at 2039 Riverside Avenue under temporary use permit number 27. And whereas temporary use permit number 27 was approved by council at the regular council meeting held on August 21st, 2023. And whereas BC Housing has requested a renewal of the temporary use permit to continue the operation of an emergency shelter. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve a 3-year renewal of temporary use permit number 27 for BC Housing at 2039 Riverside Avenue, extending the permit's expiry date to September 10th, 2028 to continue the operations of an emergency shelter. For someone that wants to,
Make them move it to have the conversation, right? A first and a second.
I need somebody to move it.
I'll move
and
it.
second it.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you. So, any questions or comments on the motion? On the recommendation,
I'm
Councilor
happy,
Hanson?
I'm happy to speak to it. This was never an easy decision a year ago. This was the first thing that landed on our plates when we became elected officials. And this was something that got dumped on our laps to how to figure out this. Well, we were all trying to find our footings and try to know what our roles and responsibilities are in local government. Our roles and responsibilities are to do the best thing for our community as a whole. 8,000 individuals. There is no magic unicorn for the perfect location for this property. And I can tell you, because I've been trying to help find everything I could that could possibly be of use or be a potential opportunity. That is my job. So I have been helping, trying to figure out for them, presenting properties that might be the right fit, might be the right location, might impact the least amount of people. So it's not going to go out to casino where no one's going to go and access the services. It's not going to go into a rural area where no one's going to leave our downtown core that needs to get their checks, that needs to get to the hospital, that needs to go to these areas. So we all need to understand that shipping these individuals out is not a thing that's even a feasible option. We also don't have control over the fentanyl crisis. There has been billions of dollars spent by the provincial governments trying to crack down on this. What we as council can do is we can advocate for more RCMP services, which for the last 2 years at UBCM, we have been meeting with E-Division and have been advocating for more police officers and have gotten more police officers. We have also been advocating for the crime reduction unit so that they can sit on houses, get warrants, so they can do drug busts. If you have seen in the news in the last year, we've had 3. The last 2 that we've had were a direct result of us being able to get the crime reduction unit back to trail. So we as council have a job for safety of our community as a whole. And we are advocating to the RCMP to get more supports. I have consulted with BC Ambulance Services, a number of individuals that I know that work with them. We have talked with the fire first responders, a number of them. I've talked with downtown businesses, and I can tell you, I work in the downtown core. I walk downtown all the time. And I can tell you in the last year, there has been a drastic decrease in vulnerable individuals in our downtown core, visible downtown people in our core. The other thing. Give me a minute, please. Don't interrupt.
Order, please.
So. The other thing you guys also need to understand is that we all live in different communities. I live on a street in Glen Mary, 2 drug busts on my street. And people walking bent over on my street in Glen Mary. So it's not just in your community on Riverside Avenue, it's in all communities in this community, okay? All communities. So we are doing our best to be able to get more supports, there's a collaborative plan right now, working with Nelson and Castlegar and ourselves for drug reduction, for rehab and detox. I can tell you half of the battle that these individuals are facing is the system with getting people into rehab. I can tell you a dear family friend has been trying to get his son into rehab and he got bumped off a list because a form was misfilled and got bumped off for 2 months that wanted to get help. So it is not just a housing issue, it is a bigger problem. It is, yes, there's fentanyl, but we also have drug dealers. We also have a lack of RCMP. We also have a lack of getting people into care that need to get into care, waiting to get into treatment that want to get into treatment. There was probably more than the 5 people that got into treatment because of a lack of being able to get them there. So no matter where we put this thing, it's not going to be resolved. This is bigger than just us, and every community in Canada is facing this, not just us. My family's in Penticton, they have 2 shelters there. They have seen a drastic difference in their downtown core since their 2 temporary shelters that look exactly like ours were built. You know what they are? They're on a main street by Walmart and houses and neighbors. So it is not just our area, it is every area. So while I know it's not ideal, and while I know it affects everybody surrounding it, we have to make the decision as a whole as council for 8,000 people. And having 13 people here opposing it, as opposed to 7,000 people here opposing it, I understand where you're coming from. But we also have to do the majority of good for the whole. So at this point, I do not want another council to face this, to make a decision on election in 1 year, because that is not fair to them, to have this dropped on their plate. But I also want some accountability for the shelter. I want continued meetings with BC Housing and the neighbors. And I want to make sure that we carry on investigating and supporting our RCMP, as well as our E-Division, and also be able to look at options for consultation with what we actually can do around the Crown Land area. So when we go down to UBC, I'm setting up a meeting with the Ministry of Lands and Water and Resources to say, what can we actually do around there to protect around the shelter in that area where people are encamping? Because it is not necessarily the individuals in the shelter, it's the people congregating around it that's the problem. So, and we can't force those people to get treatment. And we can't force those people to go in and stay in the shelter. But we also have only so much jurisdiction that we can do. We have bylaw that is doing outstanding, trying to manage what's there, but we also have limitations. So I, at this point, would be supportive of a 2-year term as opposed to a 1-year term until the next council comes through. So there is some accountability.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hanson. My understanding is we only get 1 renewal and it can only be for 3 years.
No.
It can be up to 3 years.
Up to.
We did the 1 renewal.
No, this is the first renewal.
Sorry?
This is the first renewal. It was the original, and then this is the first renewal, the first term.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. Okay, Councillor Cashel.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson, and I have to agree with 99.9% of what you're saying, but I don't agree with the 2-year extension, and I'll try and explain. Mr. Lowe, you've mentioned a 1-year renewal for accountability. If I lived where you lived, I'd probably want the same thing, sir. But I don't think 1 year is going to give us enough time. And today I'm voting in support of a 3-year extension for the temporary use permit for the El Nino shelter, because I believe it reflects compassion, reality, and the wishes of the majority of our constituents who we have to represent as our elected officials. The shelter has proven to be a critical lifeline for some, and has proven to be a critical and has offered our most vulnerable residents not only a warm place to sleep, but connection to food, healthcare, addiction treatment, mental health services, and pathways to permanent housing. 5 people receive treatment. If 1 person received treatment, that's a win for me. If that 1 person was my family member, that would be a win for me. 13 people secured housing. If 1 person secured housing, that would be a win for me. So these 13% that you mentioned, Margaret, 13% to me is a significant number. I know how close this shelter is to your neighborhood. I stopped down there and I actually paced it off from the corner of the shelter to the nearest residence, which happens to be, I believe, a rental, is less than 50 meters. So you live in very close proximity to this shelter, and you raise very little legitimate concerns.
That are never addressed.
But I want to assure you that we are committed to addressing safety, as I think Councillor Hanson did an excellent job in articulating what we're doing, lobbying for more police, and I really appreciate your account of what's going on there. We're addressing safety, cleanliness, accountability. A 3-year extension gives us time to work towards a more sustainable, long-term solution. But my concern is that in 3 years, we may be faced with a zoning request for a permanent shelter in Riverside. And I don't recommend this as a legacy for Trail. So I believe our council and staff must work diligently to find an alternative location for a temporary shelter and a supportive housing. And I really believe we need this 3-year window, as Mr. Baker has articulated, to give us that time. 3 years goes by pretty quick. So that's why I'm voting in favor of a 3-year extension. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Cashel. Councillor Wilson,
I could go if you'd like me to go.
I want to hear from everyone.
I'm gonna be opposing this permit, and it's just based on what I talked about earlier, where what I and council voted on previously with the shelter is now not with the shelter in. And I can't tell you how disappointed I am to find out that the policies have changed along the way. And so I'm just not in favor of that because I don't think it addressed the problem of the temporary drop in, drop out. Don't know who was talking about the drugs in the park use, or it might have been Gord, and you could see why, because you can now go in the shelter for a day, get food, clean all that stuff, and then back out and use your drugs. So unless that changed, which doesn't sound like it's gonna, I'm not in on this one, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you through the chair. I understand your frustrations. It's horrible. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to think that it's not bad, because it is. I look at what had happened in the alley for all those years. Things are better downtown. Talk to different business owners. A lot of them say it is 100% better. Some don't say it's only 80% better. I think some of the issues that we brought up tonight, like the temporary going into the shelter for certain periods of time, I think things like that can be looked at with BC Housing. I think talking with Sergeant Wysenowicz through the Community Safety Task Force, I know some people don't believe in the local RCMP, but I personally do. And for that reason, I think we can work towards trying to make it better for everybody on Riverside Ave. Is it going to be perfect? I wish I could say it's going to be perfect, but it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to be voting in favor of it because I want BC Housing to come up with a permanent temporary or a supportive housing unit, excuse me. And I think this is our only option right now to do that. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Benson?
I feel that everything that I've thought has been said. I think the highlights for me are, I also believe when the permit went through and we had the attention of BC Housing last year, I thought that by this point we would know where the permanent shelter was going to go. And it doesn't seem that, and I also feel that we were kind of forgotten somewhere along the way. So I am going to commit and because I'm very good at pestering, that we're gonna be to BC Housing in terms of what does this look like in 3 years? And we have some really good people on this council right now. And there will be a new election next year. So let's leave this place better than we found it and find a place for both the temporary shelter and also supportive housing, because I truly don't believe that without supportive housing in place, you need the next step on the continuum in order to even start a continuum. I also want to really emphasize what Councillor Hansen said in terms of the RCMP presence in town. We fought for this a lot at UBCM, and we had really good follow-ups. We actually had a recent follow-up that hopefully we'll be able to introduce soon in terms of something called the situation table, which will help some of the higher risk individuals in our community. And so I'll pester for that too. And I agree. I think that we need to be realistic. So I'm going to be voting yes for the 3 year, but also voting yes for me pestering for Tyler. Sorry.
Happy. Always happy here.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Benson. And we have Councillor Butler.
Sure, thanks, Mayor Jones. And I'll just speak to it from like a historical perspective. And that is, this was something that you and I started off with 7 years ago. And it's something that you and I are still continuing with today. And I also want to speak to the fact that I think it was very unfair to Councillor Hansen's point that this was one of the first items that had to be dropped on this new council's lap. I was the one who made the motion, the friendly amendment for the 1-year extension, with a sincere and complete hope that we would be in a better place at this point today, which I don't feel we are. I also want to speak to my disappointment of Mr. Baker's comment that 91 people will be out on the streets if we are to close the shelter down tomorrow. I think we have a compassionate provincial government with the NDP in power in this province. And I sincerely don't believe that we will have 91 people on the streets of Trail tomorrow morning. There are mechanisms that simply would allow the provincial government to take the powers of the city away and override it. So I don't have that fear that that's going to be sort of an ultimatum that we have to deal with. I do, however, support Councillor Hanson's expression of a 2-year compromise, because I feel that it keeps BC Housing active on our file, because I do feel that we've been sort of moved along here over the course of 7 years. I remember vividly the conversations with at the UBCM at Whistler, when we were told that there was absolutely zero that BC Housing could do for the city of Trail, when we were able to advocate to the Attorney General. Surprisingly, the next morning, containers were found. So I respect the work that Tyler and Annette have done on our file, but at the same time, I do want to express my disappointment to where we're at this point. So I would like to, if it was a motion by Councillor Hanson as a friendly amendment to change the motion to a 2-year extension, I would like to second that if I can, if that's correct procedure, Mrs. Butler. If not, then please advise how we can go about. And if it falls off the table, then I'm also supportive of a 3-year extension.
Thank you, through your worship. As this is a regular meeting, we would need an amending motion if we are amending the 3 years to 2 years. So that needs to formally be put on the table as a mover and a seconder, and then carried that amendment, and then we would move forward depending on how that vote. So.
Okay. So Councillor Hanson, did you want to
Can I speak to something, Mayor Jones' suggestion? We have got 3 in favor, we got 1 denial, we got 2 that want, so it's sort of resting on you. If you were in favor of the 3-year TUP, then we wouldn't have to probably entertain the motion put forward by Councillor Hanson. That's my.
Yeah, point of order. There is no motion put forward by Councillor Hanson at this time.
Suggestion.
So it is up to the chair of this meeting if she wishes to put the motion as written on the table to be voted on.
Okay. So can I speak to the motion before we? Yeah, okay. I just wanted to mean that really quick. So I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said around the table, because we've heard it last and several times, and we all understand, and we totally are. It's like Councillor Martin said, we're not going to kid you guys. If this was in our backyard, it would be just as difficult for us to. I think that council has worked really, really hard, like I said before, to be good neighbors. And I want to be really, really clear as well. The shelter isn't the full solution to the problem. What it is, it's part of the solution. And we have to remember that this shelter, any shelter anywhere, is actually saving lives. And that's the goal. And as Councillor Cashel said, you really can't put a price on that. If you're saving one life, you're saving, $1 million, as far as I'm concerned. And as I said before, the City of Trail, BC Housing, the Trail Association for Community Living, and let's not forget Interior Health and our community development partners have all been working really, really hard with intention, not only to support the shelter guests, but also to be good neighbors. And I know I've said good neighbors a few times. I think that's a really important part of what we're doing when we're listening to you, trying to come up with solutions, the extra security cameras, the, widening of the sidewalks to make it safer down there. Having the, shelter staff patrol from the walking bridge to the old bridge. Everything that we've come up with, the extra meetings that we've had with BC Housing, is because we're listening to your concerns. And we have met with the residents a couple of times since the shelter has gone up. And we have made sure, and somebody said that we brought in a facilitator that wouldn't let them speak, but we wanted to make sure that that meeting was recorded. Because we wanted to have something to go back on and make sure that the community was being looked after. And I think that that's what we've done. I've seen the follow-up on it. And I honestly, BC Housing has made a commitment now to clean the fence to make it more private. We've had some good discussions here about moving forward with the seniors in the shelter. We're going to look at the smoking of drugs going into the neighborhood. So we've come up with some good ideas again tonight. So every report that we've received, every conversation that we've had tells us though that we are doing the right thing. Again, we're saving people's lives. We're trying to help them through difficult situations. We're providing them a place to live when we know that housing is very, very difficult for a lot of people in our community at every level. So we are standing up for our community, and for that reason, I am going to support the 3-year extension on the shelter. So with that, does anybody have any water left down there in the jug? No?
One here.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to call the question. And if there's no, the recommendation, as I read before, is on the table. And so all those in favor of the recommendation, and I can read that again if people want. But I think you understand that I'll read the last line. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve a 3-year renewal of temporary use permit number 27 for BC Housing at 2039 Riverside Avenue, extending the permit expiry to September 10th of 2028 to continue the operations of an emergency shelter. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that was 5-2. Paul voted in favor of the 3-year term. Thank you, Paul.
And would you like that recorded?
Sure.
So Councillor Hanson and Councillor Wilson opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so item number 15 is council meeting minutes for approval. And we have 2 council meetings, the regular council meeting of June 23rd and the special council meeting on July 8th. Is there someone to make that motion? Thank you, Councillor Hanson, Councillor Martin, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. Resolutions for the June 23rd, 2025 Committee of the Whole to be considered for adoption. We have a resolution that council consider and resolve the report on the invoices paid for the municipal services from May 1st to the 31st. A mover and a seconder, please. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. We have another resolution that council consider and resolve that council approves staff to send a letter informing donors who purchased benches prior to the creation of the policy PW 0151, how the policy impacts their sponsorship in the program, including to provide sponsors who have already exceeded the 15-year maintenance period with a grace period of 18 months to decide if they would like to renew their sponsorship as per the terms of policy PW 15-1 following the grace period, or in the event no contact can be made with the donor family, plaques would be removed and returned if possible, and the bench returned to inventory to be resold as per the policy. Is there a seconder, please? Any questions or comments on this? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. Resolutions from July 21st committee of the whole meeting to be considered for adoption, and we do have two coming up. The 3360 Laurel Crescent. I'm gonna pass that to.
You can pass it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you through
Ms.
this.
Butler, thank you.
So this is our unsightly premises motion that we passed earlier today in the committee meeting. I would like to bring it forward to the regular tonight so that we can start with the 30-day notice period on this property. So the recommendation is that pursuant to the provisions of the unsightly premises bylaw number 2669, 2008, it is hereby resolved that the owner of lot 19, plan NEP 9512, district lot 4598, Kootenai Land District PID 013068342, be notified to remove the overgrowth of vegetation and the accumulation of discarded materials and other debris within 30 days of receipt of the notice to do so. And further, that the corporate officer of the City of Trail be authorized in default of the actions being undertaken by the owner within 30 days of the notice to do so, to carry out and have such work carried out at the expense charged to the owner, and if unpaid by December 31st, 2025, the expense shall be added to and form part of the taxes payable on the real property as taxes in arrears.
Is there someone to, thank you, a seconder, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. And Tracy, do you want to do the capital budget allowance, or shall I get?
No, that's fine.
Okay. thank you.
And then the other motion that we would ask to be brought forward to tonight's meeting is staff report on capital budget reallocation. And the motion for that is that the budget set within the 2025 capital plan projects titled Butler Park Doors and Butler Park Facade be reallocated to support Bellisny Park field improvements with a total allowable fund of $100,000.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson, are you making that one? Okay, and Councillor Martin? Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. Reports of meeting minutes of council committees. We have the Community Safety Task Force Committee draft minutes. Does anybody want to speak about that? Councillor Martin?
Thanks to the chair. As everybody's had an opportunity to read the minutes, I'm open to any type of questions. There's a lot of information in there. So does anybody have any questions? Not at this time. Thank you very much.
Okay, and then we have the Silver City Day Committee meeting minutes. Councillor Benson or Councillor Cashel, did you want to speak on those?
Sure. So the minutes this month reflect the lessons learned exercise that we did a couple weeks ago. Our biggest takeaways, I think next year is gonna be our best year for waste disposal. I feel like our first year was a disaster, and then we got better, and then we got better, and next year's like, look out. They're gonna need 3 years.
Tipping point?
Yeah, and also definitely the weather was excellent this year, except for the Sunday. And so next year, just learning to have a contingency for weather so that we can keep our family day celebration still quite large. I'm happy to report, with help of Mr. McClure, that we raised money during the fun run that we are going to be donating to Sanctuary House, and we donated we raised over $600. So that'll be coming to Sanctuary. And then, since we are talking about money, just hoping that now that everything is tied up, that the next report to council will have maybe just the financial statements for what was budgeted and how we did, because I think we did really well, and everyone would be happy. Right,
Awesome.
Councillor Cashel?
Thank you, Councillor Ben. And just further to the reporting, I think it'd be nice to see that our budget also come to council before the end of November, so that we can deal with it accordingly and according to the terms of reference. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You did, Grace.
So the resolution is that council adopt the following minutes and recommendations within. Is there someone to make that a motion, please? Councillor Wilson and Councillor Benson, all those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. The Regional District of Kootenai Boundary Report, over to Councillor Martin, please.
Thank you through the chair. I'll try to be quick. Wednesday, June 25th, there was an RDKB board meeting in Trail. The board directed staff to request meetings with provincial ministers to discuss the following issues at the UBCM convention this September. They want a meeting with Premier Eby regarding provincial downloading and the fire underwriter survey, excuse me. Asked the province to lobby the fire underwriter survey in partnership with local governments and the Fire Chiefs Association regarding fire insurance and fire apparatus replacement requirements. They also want to talk to ministers regarding the extended hours of provincial parks. Got a delegation from Tech Trail Operations who provide an update on the economic challenges facing the zinc smelting industry. It's the same representatives that we had here, so I won't get into any of the details. They're just asking the regional district to consider their position during future budget discussions. Cooling and warming center policy. Staff were directed to review the RDKB's cooling and warming center policy for alignment with the Emergency and Disaster Management Act, and to bring this to the July board meeting, which is next week, for approval, as the City of Trail is now opening centers on a regular basis in both the summer and winter. The Community Works Fund application, the board approved $25,000 from the Community Works Fund for the Grand Forks ATV Club to support sign installation and a new trail brochure for the trails of the North Fork. The board directed staff to send a letter to the Village of Warfield in support of its application for a $350,000 grant from the Disaster Resilience and Innovating Funding Program for drainage issues in Annabelle. The board approved various grant and aids for areas A, B, E, West Boundary totaling $28,000. On Thursday, June 26th, I attended a West Kootenay Boundary Regional Hospital District Board meeting in Castlegar. There's a question and answer session with members of the Legislative Assembly. Brittany Anderson, Stephen Morissette from provincial government, and Donegal Wilson, Conservative MLA for Boundaries and Milkmead. We also had a delegation from Interior Health regarding capital project status report and a clinical operations report. On Wednesday, July 9th, I attended an RDKB Utilities meeting via Teams. Delegation from a resident of 9361 Station Road in Area A inquired about the possibility of having a water service connection supplied from the nearby RDKB water tank that supplies the Columbia Gardens industrial water system. The Utilities Committee directed staff to provide a report on this request at the next Utilities meeting in September. RDKB Manager of Infrastructure and Sustainability, Goran Denkovsky, provided operating reports for the month of June for services throughout the RDKB. That's it from our report.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Is there any questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Correspondence for information. We have a resolution that the following correspondence be received for information, and it was a Lenina Shelter letter of support. Councilor Butler, thank you. It's our seconder, please. Councilor Benson, and all those in favor. Thank you. Correspondence for action, recommendation is that council consider and resolve that council approve the provision of a letter to support of, to the Trail Minor Baseball to accompany their upcoming grant and donor applications. Councilor Wilson, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Benson. All those in favor? That was carried. Recommendation is that council approve the provision of a letter to support to Roslyn Trail 2026 BC Winter Games to accompany their proposal to the Community Employer and Employer Partnerships Fund to support work experience opportunities with the games. Thank you, Councilor Benson and Councilor Wilson. All those in favor? Thank you. That was carried. So on to my report. So June 25th, I attended the Knowledge Sharing and Learning meeting with the Trail Health and Environment Committee. And it was just a discussion about the onboarding tour that was hosted by the City of Trail and Tech Operations. And the purpose of that was to support new members of the Trail Health and Environment Committee to better understand the incredible work that is being done in our community to support human health and well-being in a community that is influenced by the smelter air emissions. June 26th, I attended the funeral of Fred Romano, who was a very dedicated counselor for the city of Trail and served on council for 18 years. And he was remembered for his volunteering with the baseball league in Trail. And not only was he a great baseball player, but also he coached the little league teams. And they talked about his love for skiing. So I personally knew Fred, and I thought he was a really solid counselor for the city of Trail. So I was sorry to hear of his passing. June 27th, I had one of several meetings, myself and Life Labs, about the closing of the main clinic and the lab in Trail. June 30th, I attended the final meeting of the Ending Poverty Working Group. So over the last 3 years, the Skill Center has been leading a poverty reduction program. And 5 communities, if council remembers, 5 communities from across Canada has been participating in this program. And Heather Glenn Durgasov has been leading the development of the Thriving for All plan for healthy communities in rural communities. So in July, Heather started a new role as the interim executive director of the Kootenay Boundary Community Services Co-op and has left the Skill Center. And so it was a good opportunity to say goodbye and, wish her the best of luck in her new role. July 1st, Canada Day, that seems like so long ago, you guys. But July 1st at Gyro Park, it was Canada Day. And I actually had the honor of working or being with our past mayor, one of our past mayors, Dieter Boggs, and he was the MC for the event. And I also had the opportunity to give the opening remarks and to start the celebration off. And I also want to personally thank Jason Thomas for his music and keeping the crowd really engaged during that time. So a big lesson for next year is more food vendors, because people come to those events to eat. So it was really quite obvious. July 2nd, I attended the Association Kootenay Boundary Local Government Executive Board meeting. And at that meeting, we're planning for UBCM advocacy and a big discussion on which ministers we want to meet with to discuss the resolutions that came from the AKBLG conference in April. On July 3rd, I had another meeting with Life Labs and the Community Health Center. July 3rd, also, I did a radio interview with Drew Wilson about the second access road for the hospital. And as Councillor Martin spoke in his report, that a motion was passed at the regional district with the MLAs, asking for the MLAs to support and lobby for a second access road. July 7th, I had a meeting with Life Labs, Interior Health, and the Community Health Board members. On July 8th, the special council meeting, a presentation from Community Futures, Trail and District Chamber of Commerce, and the Lower Columbia Community Development Team on the future of economic development in Trail and area. And also, at that meeting, council also had a discussion about the ministers that are a priority for us to meet at UBCM. And I think that we're still trying to confirm that list. July 9th. I had a brief meeting with Life Labs about their plans moving forward, and that meeting actually didn't go anywhere because Interior Health wasn't at the table, so wasn't interested in moving forward with that. July 15th, a brief meeting again with the Community Health Center about their concerns still not being addressed, and hoping for some more time with Interior Health before anything gets finalized. I just wanted to say that also I attended the presentation from the Seniors Advocate being held at the Legion, myself and Councillor Martin. And I think it was really well attended. Probably about 70 seniors were in the room. It was really good. And when the time came for questions, yeah, someone, stood up and asked about the blood lab. So, I did do a brief, report on what was happening, and I took the opportunity to answer some of their questions because they've heard the rumors and they didn't have any answers. So it was a good, opportunity to get some information out. July 16th. I was just preparing for our final Zoom meeting before implementing the blood lab. And I received a phone call from the new CEO and president of Interior Health, Sylvia Weir. And she explained to me at that time that the closure was not moving forward and that we needed more time for collaboration and to have a bigger discussion about what was happening with the blood lab and more information needed to be gathered. December 21st, which is today, I attended the Community Safety Task Force meeting, and as always, a good meeting. People still need support and help even in good weather. Different issues arise with the shelter and our vulnerable population, and yeah, it was another good meeting. And that's the end of my report. Is there any questions or comments before?
Has Interior Health put anything out in terms of communication?
No, I haven't seen anything. I actually did see a note go out to the doctors.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything go to the community.
Okay.
Okay. So, we'll move on to bylaws for consideration. So we have a number of bylaws here. Bylaw number 2958, 2025. A bylaw to rezone the property at 1584 Diamond Street to allow for a short-term rental accommodation. Is there someone that wants to, Tracy? Did you want to speak?
Point of order, just that the motion is that the zoning amendment bylaw 2958, 2025 be read at first and second.
Oh, okay, thank you. That the zoning amendment bylaw number 2958, 2025 be read and first and second time. Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Benson. All those in favor? That was carried. Bylaw number 2959, 2025.
Excuse me.
A bylaw workshop. Yes. Oh, okay, thank you. The bylaw to rezone the property at 112 Roslyn Avenue to allow for a short-term rental accommodation. Move and seconded and resolved that the zoning amendment bylaw number 2959, 2025 be read and first and second time. Councillor Martin and Councillor Butler, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you, that was carried. We have bylaw number 2960, 2025, a bylaw to rezone the property at 710 Spokane Street to allow a short-term rental accommodation. Move and seconded. Sorry, resolved that the zoning bylaw number 2960, 2025 be read first and second time. Thank you. That was moved and seconded. All those in favor? That was carried. Thank you. Bylaw number 2961, 2025, a bylaw to increase vehicle parking fees at the Trail Regional Airport. And be it resolved that the Trail Regional Airport fees amendment bylaw number 2961 be read a first, second, and third time. Councillor Butler and Councillor Hanson, all those in favor? Thank you, that is carried. Question period. Is there any questions from council? No, okay, thank you.
Online.
Oh, is there someone online?
We currently have 3 attendees online. If you wish to ask any questions of council, can you please use the raise hand function at this time?
What's his name?
He's gone.
He didn't make it.
I see no questions.
Okay, thank you. Notice of motion, Councillor Cashel.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. I have a notice of motion that I'm hoping will be added to the August 18th regular council agenda for discussion and debate. Whereas the properties located at 900 Spokane Street and 901 Helena are currently scheduled for demolition, and whereas these sites present significant opportunity for revitalization and strategic redevelopment in the city's downtown core, and whereas there is an identified and ongoing need for diverse housing options and mixed-use development within the city, and whereas the city would benefit from further exploration of practical options, community input, and professional expertise to guide decision-making regarding redevelopment of these parcels. Therefore, be it resolved that a select committee on mixed-use redevelopment be established to advise mayor and council and staff on development options and provide recommendations for the construction of mixed-use buildings with a focus on incorporating a housing component at 900 Spokane Street and 901 Helena Street. And that the committee be comprised of members appointed by council and may include representatives from city council, city staff, local housing authorities, experts, or non-profit housing organizations, downtown business community, urban planning or architectural professionals, and community stakeholders. And that the select committee be expected to deliver a preliminary report to council 120 days of its formation, including options, feasibility considerations, potential partnerships, and funding opportunities related to the redevelopment. Thank you, your worship. That is my notice of motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Farrell. So that will be brought to council on August 18th, the next council meeting. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry. Been a lot of meeting. Sorry, Councillor Cashel.
Okay, so, our next meeting is August 18th, 2025 for the committee of the whole, followed by the regular council meeting. A motion to adjourn, please. Seconder, all those in favor, thank you.